Hello, my name is Habib Khan, and we are covering Steve Jobs on episode 3 of Famous People's Routines. In this video, we'll first go over the context of Steve Jobs' life, and then we'll go over the content. So, starting with why he did what he did, and then we'll go into what he actually did in his day-to-day life. So, the 6 essential habits that he ran his life with start with the following. So number 1, follow your passion. You can't do anything in life for that long if you don't love it. So the tricky thing with this is that if you're working on something you don't like, you need to either figure out a way to like it or start changing what you're doing. You can't do anything you hate for that long. And it's kind of intuitive, but it's a struggle because you also want to be able to make money, make a living. And so following your passion is something that you're either going to go for something that, no one will pay you for, or you're going to go too much in the direction where you're doing something you hate. So just make incremental steps into following more of your passion than you did last year, for example, right? So that's the first essential habit. Number 2, you want to focus in each area of your life. So Steve Jobs was very well known for focusing on product and quality. So that's why Apple is known to have what? Quality products. And it's because that is what he stood for. And even when it came to the people around him, he had a certain focus about who should be around him and who he's going to hire, as well as the mission. So he would focus on the mission as well. And that leads us into the third essential habit, which is have a mission. Have a big mission for your life that gives you a reason to wake up. And for him, it's about having values and a brand. And what should Apple be known for? What is Steve Jobs known for? He has his own personal brand where he wears the black turtleneck and jeans, as well as the New Balance sneakers. And, that's his personal brand because he doesn't care about the fashion necessarily. So in order to develop the mission, he had to focus on great quality products and great people. And so that's what he spent his day doing. So I'm going to read a quote about what he does all day, and it's, "What I do all day is meet with teams of people and work on ideas and new problems to come up with new products." Okay, wow. So he is working all day on new products and solving problems. So that helps us get into habit number 4, which is storytelling. Steve Jobs was very good at telling the story of Apple, how to think different, and how the iPhone was 5 years ahead of every other phone at the time. It combined the internet, phone, and music player. So the way that Steve would tell stories about products, about people, about teams. So everything that Steve would tell stories about, people listened because he had a way of figuring out how he felt authentically and honestly, and how other people must be feeling that too. And so what he attracted was people who resonated with his story. Now, if you're going to hide your story and not be forthcoming with why you're doing what you're doing and the story of why you're doing what you're doing or talking about whatever you're talking about, without that story, people don't believe you. They don't find you to be honest or trustworthy. And when Steve tells the story of Apple, he's showing us how we can be more upfront about what we're trying to accomplish. What is the greater context of everything we're trying to do? Habit number 5 is that failure isn't real. So Steve would encourage young entrepreneurs that even if they fail at their companies, it's still a lesson to be learned. It's not really failure because he was fired from his own company that he started, Apple, when he was 30. And so he knows that even after he got fired, he ended up starting Pixar, Next Computers, and he found the person that he was going to marry, so the love of his life, all after getting fired from Apple. Instead of viewing that as a failure, he didn't know at the time, but it ended up propelling him into all these other opportunities that wouldn't have been possible. And so he went into a creative renaissance after being fired. So it's something to really consider when you're failing. Are you really failing, or is that setting you up for something else? And the more we can think of failure not being real, that it is yet another narrative or story that we're telling ourselves that we failed, we can have control over, the ups and the downs. And so that is a very critical part of his philosophy. And so seeing that failure isn't real, that encourages you to take more risks, to have an opinion, to have the courage of your convictions, to go for something, which he did. And so the final habit of his life that I think is really important, and he didn't do enough, but he did it to some extent, which is appreciate your team. He actually took 1 to 2 years to find certain employees, so you actually take a lot of time out of his day, his year, to chase after some people he thought was valuable. And so when they did build things like the iPhone or the iPad, he would actually really thank the team. And he knew that, he would always, every Monday discuss with his team, what happened in the previous week. And he had a lot of intimate conversations, and, he was known as kind of an asshole, but he, at the end of the day, wanted what was best for the customer. And he wanted a team that was strong enough to do it, to argue with him back and forth and just make a better product. And when that product was made, he did make sure to thank those people who got him along that way. And maybe he didn't do it enough, because when he died in 2011, Steve Jobs did regret how little time he spent with his family. So maybe the team that Steve should have appreciated was not only the team at Apple, but he should have appreciated his team at home, which is his children. Now, there are some things that he did try to do, but it just sometimes when you aren't prioritizing those people in your life, then you end up dying with regrets that you didn't spend enough time with them. But the last tip I'll give on this section is just Steve found a way to have fun with everything. Like the way he designed products, he made sure that it was fun and easy to use, and that's something that resonated with him. So he brought a piece of himself into everything that he did at work. And I think that that is a critical thing of finding your passion and having fun, because if you can't have fun at work, and if you can't do what you love, then you won't be doing that for long, or you'll be miserable. Now, I want to get into his daily routine. Okay, so Steve Jobs woke up at 6 a.m. and he would actually start working immediately until 7:30, when he'd have breakfast with his children and his wife. And so he would mainly have a fruit diet. They call it fruitarian. So he ended up becoming more of a pescatarian as time went on, but he would start with fruit. And actually that's partially why Apple was named Apple, is because he spent some time where he would just eat apples all day, every day for weeks. And anyway, so he'd arrive at Apple around 9 a.m. and he would work, whether it's meetings or whatever, until 12 p.m., where he'd have lunch. And then finally in the afternoon, at the end of his workday, or the latter half of his workday, at 1:30, he would go to the design lab and check out the latest designs of products. So what's interesting about this is that the context of his work in the morning is extremely different from the context of his work in the afternoon. So that's something to think about, is that you break up your work schedule into halves, where in the morning you're doing a certain kind of work, and then in the afternoon you're doing a different kind of work. I thought that was interesting. So he goes home around 5 and has dinner with his family at 5:30. He goes for a walk with his wife around 6:30. And before bed around 10, he would do meditation and spiritual practices. He did follow Zen Buddhism. When it comes to Steve Jobs, he had a very big impact on this world, and he had tremendous focus. And even after he passed, we are still learning from his example. So I'm adding Steve Jobs' routine to habitapp.com, and you could check out Steve's routine as well as Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk by now. So check out those routines. And next week we are doing Oprah Winfrey. She is a talk show host and a billionaire too. So that should be exciting. And if you like this video, leave a like and subscribe to this channel for more. I'll see you next week.